450.
450. Okay.
We're all spread out in different rooms.
The recording was preemptive, but I just wanted to make sure I could get it going.
Cut off the scone chat.
We'll let you know, David.
Actually, so whenever you're ready, I think we've got most of the folks back on the line.
I couldn't forward that to Charmaine. Cindy, do you mind forwarding the invite to her? I couldn't find her email.
We'll do right now.
Oh, I just did it already.
Thank you.
I'm just logging into all the apps and then we'll get started. Wow, it's very slow. Hopefully it won't be this slow for the demo. Okay, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I can now. Yep.
Okay. Before we start, I'm just going to attempt to record myself.
I think David already did.
Should we double record just in case, David?
Let's give it a try, yeah. I also have all the scone chatter at the start, so we'll have to throw that out.
Okay, so what I'm going to show you guys today is referral triage. It's basically broken up into two workflows. One is an internal referral triage workflow where it starts as an order, a referral order in PowerChart. And the other one is an external referral triage workflow where the referral comes in as like a referral package or a referral letter into WorkQM. So the beginning parts of these two workflows are different, but eventually it becomes the same once the referral is being triaged by the nurse. So I'll kind of show you the beginnings of both, and then I'll do the end-to-end for the internal referral workflow. So we are recording, so please, you can ask questions as we go along, but also maybe wait till the end as well. And before we get started, I did want to say that because the referral triage workflow is very much like back and forth between the clerk and the clinician, when you're demoing this, I think the expectation, at least for the PHCCASs, is to be able to demo the clinician portion of the workflow. So I'm going to be a little bit faster on the clerical part, just for the sake of time, but we can always maybe go through it at a later time if you do want to go through the clerical portions again. I also attached the Confluence link in the invite, so you can go to the referral triage Visio workflows on Confluence to review as well. I just don't think we'll have time to go through the Visio and do the demo, so I figured doing the demo would probably be more worthwhile. So for the internal referral triage workflow, I'm logged in as an ambulatory nurse. Sometimes it's a nurse that does the triaging in the clinic. Sometimes it can be a physician. Sometimes it's both. So I'll kind of go through what it would look like if there was both a nurse and a physician, but it's very similar. And the first thing we're going to do is let's pretend we're a referring physician and we want to put in a referral order. Oops, I don't want to do that on a patient. So most of the referral orders are, I think some of them are on the quick orders, but for now, let's just search. I'm going to put in a referral to the heart function clinic. And nurses can do this, but obviously you would have to put in the referring physician just like you would with all orders. And then you would put in your scheduling priority at what you would want the clinic to schedule your patient for. If there is like triaging and screening involved, this can definitely change depending on the receiving end, what they think is best, but it is a required field, so the clinicians do have to put it in. Because referrals are enterprise orders, you will sometimes see a location with a bunch of drop-downs. So for example, there is a heart function clinic at VGH. So when VGH goes live, there will be a new location added to this drop-down that will say VGH heart function clinic. The paper referral option is for clinics that are not on Cerner. So if right now I wanted to order a referral to the heart function clinic at VGH, I would have to choose the paper referral for now, which means it would print out a referral form, and then I would have to get a clerk to fax it to the VGH clinic. So I'm going to choose SPH heart function as my location, and then reason for referral is just a free text. So I'll just put demo in for now. This is a brand new field that was just built, I think, within the last month, where you can actually put in your modality, but it's not a required field. So for now, I'll just kind of leave it blank. And again, there's special instructions if there's more things you would like to add to the patient for the clerk to see when they see this request. And I don't really know what the requested provider field is for because you already put in the referring provider. So I don't think it's used very often. So I'm going to assign this order. And now I'm going to show you what it looks like on the clerk side. So the clerks use this request list. It's kind of like their daily slate that they're going to use to see requests for their clinic. So it's request list by location, and then it's for cardiac anyways, it's called cardiac clinic future requests. This is, again, the clerical portion, so you may not be expected to know exactly what queues the clinics are going to have, but when the scheduling team is designing things, these are the types of things that they will figure out what kind of queues they need to build for certain clinics. So this is ambulatory, and I'm going to choose heart function and find. So any kind of referral order or follow-up order is going to land here that hasn't been scheduled yet. So I'm going to find the referral order that was just put in. So as you can see, there's lots of columns here, and I do sometimes tell the clerks to use the receive date as a way to sort like which ones are older and newer. So for example, this is the one I just put in. It's showing up at the top. It's saying referral to heart function within 2 weeks for this patient. If they didn't have to do any triaging and they didn't need a nurse or doctor to lay eyes on this patient before they scheduled, this is when they would just right click and complete the request, meaning they are now completing this request to schedule it into the clinic. But because we need the clinician to review this patient before we schedule, what we're actually going to do is modify. And by doing this, we're able to actually add a referral encounter without scheduling. So I'm just going to quickly create a referral encounter for this patient. I'm going to move through this a little bit fast. And then for some reason, it always makes you do what I just did a second time, which is, oh, it didn't do it this time. Okay. So now the referral management window opens up to create the referral encounter, and you have to do anything that is yellow. So again, I'm just moving a little bit fast here. The really important part about this step is this referral info tab. This referral info tab is what actually drives the nurse or the physician, any clinician, to see this patient show up on their patient list. So the referral status definitions are down here. The main referral statuses that I've seen the cardiac clinics use are accepted, pending, ready for screening, ready for triage, and rejected. Some clinics will use ready for screening if they have a nurse do some triaging and then passing it on to the physician. So for example, in one of our clinics, the nurse screens the patient, makes sure they're acceptable, but the final decision to accept or reject the patient still is on the physician. So she does most of the triaging, but at the very end, she'll actually flip the status to ready for triage, and then the physician will accept or reject the patient. If there's only one clinician doing the triaging, the ready for screening status doesn't really get used, just the ready for triage status. So it's important when you're reviewing the triage workflow to see how many people are involved in triaging. We had a little bit of a mix-up at Go Live because we did have some clinics using ready for screening and then ready for triage, and then we had other clinics doing ready for triage, then ready for screening. So it was a little bit difficult for training. So then we actually ended up going back and asked all the clinics to use ready for screening when it's the nurse doing the screening, and then ready for triage when the physician's doing the last decision. And then that way it made it a little bit more standard across the clinics and really helped the clerks out. So I'm gonna put ready for screening because I now want the nurse to review this referral. And now we have a referral encounter created for this patient. Oh, I want to continue. Oh, oops. Okay, so this request list will still show this patient. And so the clerks, if they just use this list alone, they won't really know which patients they've created the referral encounter for or not. So another step that the clerks have to do is in PM Office, there's a work list that is called Referral Encounter Work List. And they have to go to this to actually view the referrals and the referral statuses. The really annoying part about this window is extremely small. It drives me bonkers. It is alphabetical, and you have to find the clinic that you want, and then you pull it over, and then you'll see. Here we go.
Sorry, what's the point of this step? What is the clerk doing?
I'll show you in one sec. So we're just creating another list that shows all the referral encounters that have been made for this clinic. So like I said in this list, this is really the request list of all of the orders this clinic is getting, whether it's for a follow-up or a referral. But because we didn't schedule yet, all we did was create a referral encounter. They haven't dropped off this list. So if they don't view this other list, it's hard to keep track of which patients they've already created a referral encounter for. So they actually have to go into PM Office, which is, as you know, a separate application, and actually view this referral encounter work list as well. So now they actually deal with two lists on a daily basis. This list pulls in the referral statuses. So that's really important for the clerks because this is really how the clerks and the clinicians communicate back and forth to say where this patient is at while they're getting triaged. So we just created this Christie PHC card referral encounter and we set it to ready for screening. And so now you can see it's pulled onto this list and we know that it's now being screened by the nurse. So now as a nurse, I'm going to show you how this pulls into their patient list. So what you need to do with your clinicians that are going to be triaging a patient is you need to set up a query-based list for them. I'm pretty sure the query-based list is position-based. So when you're designing your clinics, make sure any clinicians that need to triage have access to this type of patient list. It's called query. I think right now ambulatory nurses have it and providers have it and maybe a couple others, but just maybe double check to make sure your position has this query list. There's a couple different kinds. I don't know what these three are in build. New is the main one that we use. The Referral Triage Enterprise Workflow by NU stands for Nursing Unit, and this we had to create this because we have some surgery waitlist locations that are nursing units in the system. And so this one you guys won't have to use. Please just use the Referral Triage Enterprise Workflow New. In prod, it actually might not even say new, it might just say Referral Triage, I can't remember. So once you click this type, you need to rename it for whatever makes sense for your clinic. So because we want to pull in referral statuses that are ready for screening, it makes sense to call this list ready for screening. So that's what I'm going to call it. Say heart function. I always keep this checked off. I don't really know what happens if you uncheck it, so just maybe don't uncheck it. And then we're going to choose which status we wanted to pull in. So again, we want to pull in ready for screening, so that's the status we're going to check off. And then you need to find the clinic location. It's by alphabetical order. So I'm going to check off heart function clinic, and then I'm going to check off the medical service. And then I'm going to finish. I'm going to bring it over. Click OK. I've also done the exact same thing, but I've done it for accepted status and rejected status as well. And so now my patient's here because the clerk put ready for screening as the referral status. So the columns here, there's really not a ton of configuration we can do. It's very, very hard-coded. We've had a lot of requests to add certain things, and it's very difficult to do, so just keep that in mind during your design session. One of the things that's currently being tested is this column here called triage priority. We've been asking for this since go live. Basically, there's really no way for the clinicians to like sort their patients by how urgent they are in this list, which is obviously a big problem because when you have 20, 30 patients on this list that you're screening, it'd be nice to be able to say which ones are urgent and which ones are non-urgent, etc. Because this list is an enterprise list and these columns are across everywhere, every specialty, we weren't really able to add like a name to the type of priority. So this went to, I think, HRM's RegSketch working group, and they decided to allow a numbering system. And so if you have different urgency types, you would sort of have to map it to a number to make it work for your clinic. This is still getting tested because there's actually some issues with it. If you right-click display priority and put a number on it, as soon as you like execute your list, the numbers disappear. So there's still a ton of testing that they need to do. It's still quite new. I think for design session purposes, I would just say that we're investigating adding a priority number because I'm not sure where the testing is at and if it's going to work properly. But it is something that CST is working on right now. So I received this patient. This patient's ready for screening. I'm going to go into my patient through here and assign my relationship. Most of the screening workflows are pretty standard, I would say. It's really just reviewing the consult notes or the referral package, whatever documentation is in the patient's chart, and seeing how quick this patient needs to be seen and if this patient is right for this clinic at all. There is a referral triage workflow tab that is available for providers and I think most nursing positions. It's quite slick, like it's a very slimmed down version of the ambulatory workflow really. It has documents, orders, and diagnostics. It's not used a ton, to be honest. I haven't seen a lot of providers or nurses using it. but it is here and it is available to pull in. The main thing, again, that people want to see when they receive a referral is some sort of referral package. Part of the depending on the clinic, I guess, part of the clerical workflow could be that when they're in Chatbook, before they create that referral encounter, they could search for this patient in PowerChart and see if the proper documentation is already in there or not. So most clinics sort of have like a checklist or a guide to know we need X, Y, and Z information before we can review this patient. Depending on the clinic, it might be the clerk that actually goes through this checklist when they receive information and a referral. So some of the clinics actually have the clerks going into PowerChart to check to make sure the right documentation or diagnostics are already there and ready to go before they create the referral and set it to ready for screening. And if they do that, what they can do is actually, when they're creating the referral, instead of putting ready for screening, they could actually put pending. And then pending usually just means that the clerk is like following up to get more information or something else. So that's why when I was talking about referral statuses, pending is used sometimes, and it's usually for at the very beginning if there was like a incomplete referral and there was information missing. What else? So if at this point the patient has all the information they need, seems like an appropriate referral, and the patient is ready to be scheduled. Actually, wait, I'll pretend that there's also a provider involved too. So if the nurse has done their screening and they want to now send it to the provider, what they do is they actually go up to PM conversation. They go to update patient information. And they go to this referral tab again. And they can actually change the status from here. So this person, because they want to now give it to the doctor, and this clinic has decided that the doctors will look at patients who have a ready for triage status, is now going to actually flip it to ready for triage. Another thing that sometimes the nurses will do for communication is in the encounter information tab, they'll actually document some notes in here. So I've seen, for example, a nurse saying, before being seen, or something along the lines of, I don't know, if they need some test or something before they come in for visit or something like that. So I've seen this comment field in the encounter information being used, and also this referral status being changed in the referral info tab. So once this gets done, I'll just show you kind of what it looks like now for the clerk. So now you'll see the clerk sees ready for triage, and the clerk knows that now the provider is looking into this patient. On the patient list side, if we now execute, and we all know executing this list takes a solid 20 to 30 seconds to do, and it is different than the refresh icon. That was actually a big thing to remind the clinicians that they actually have to execute their list or they won't see any changes. Now this patient has dropped off because, again, the ready for screening status is what pulls people to this list. As soon as you change that status to something else, they're going to drop off the list. So what a lot of the nurses have is they also have a ready for screening list, and I'll take you through the same steps as before. So query, we're going to do new, we're going to name it ready for triage. We're going to pick ready for triage so it matches the title. We're going to pick our location. And our medical service. I did have a scenario where we didn't choose a medical service because we just knew, well, it's going to be all cardiology people. Why does it matter? But it actually randomly pulled other patients to the list. So I do highly suggest that you choose the medical service just in case. I think it just helps Cerner out a little bit. And then finish, we're going to pull it over. We're going to okay it. And now our patient is back because this is the ready for triage list. So what some of the triage coordinators have done is they've actually proxied this list to the physicians. And so they actually control the list, but the physicians just see it. Mostly because the physicians forget this execution button all the time. And so the nurse would be like, hey, you haven't accepted any patients in a while. You've got like 10 people on your list. And they'd say, no, I don't. I don't have anybody on my list. I'm like, okay, but you have to execute or you're not going to see. So kind of the workaround is the nurse was still sort of in charge of this list and would proxy this one out to the patient. So how you would proxy out a list is you go to this properties. You have to, I'll back up a second. You have to be on the list that you want before you click this button. So I'm on the ready for triage list. I have that tab open. You go here and we want to set up a new proxy. So you can do a group, which is a pool, or you can do a provider. Oh, maybe that was a little too fast. And then you choose access. There's 3 different accesses. One is full access, one is maintain. To be honest, I don't know the difference between these two. And one is read. So the read is sort of like a view only type access, and that's what honestly most of the nurses prefer the physicians to have. And then they apply. Oh, valid to date. Oh. I guess they just choose whatever makes sense and then apply. Oh. Okay. And now you can see who you've proxied to. So you can proxy list to multiple people. This is also really helpful for vacation coverage. If a triage coordinator is going on vacation, they'll proxy their list with full access to whoever's covering for them. And you click OK. And so now every time a new patient gets triaged, if the triage coordinator executes it, that's what it'll look like for the physician as well. So let's say this patient has been seen by the provider and they're ready to be accepted. There's actually an accept order that the physician can place. But again, I'm in as a nurse, so just pretend this part isn't happening. Or the nurse can also do it on behalf of the provider. I'll just show you what the details look like for this accept order. So again, it has a scheduling priority. Even though the scheduling priority was filled out at the beginning when the referral order was put in, once a patient is screened in triage, that scheduling priority may have changed. So let's say now after I've seen them, they're not that bad. Let's put 6 weeks instead. And then again, special instructions if needed. So what this accept order actually does is it changes the referral status. So if I go up to PM conversation and go back to update patient information, you can actually see that it's changed to accepted. So that's really what that order does. I have seen, instead of putting in the order, clinicians can actually come here and do accepted as well. We try to get them to do the order just so that there's an order and power chart saying that they did it, but it doesn't really impact the workflow too much if they just change it up here. I think because they're so used to being up here to use all these other statuses, that's what most of them end up doing. So now I'm the clerk. I'm going to refresh my referral encounter work list, and I can now see that Christy is accepted. So now I know I can right click. Oh, actually no, I have to go back to here and right click and complete the request and schedule my patient for within 2 weeks or whatever that is. Actually, I wonder if I, how do I refresh in here? So I guess you have to see the updated information in this one, in the referral work list, because you know how I changed it from 2 weeks to 6 weeks. So it says 6 weeks here. Those encounter comments, that's where it pulls. So it does show for the clerk. What else is over here? Reason for visit and any special instructions I would have put in that accept order would also pull here. And then I would just go to my list, right click, and complete the request and schedule. So that is the internal referral triage workflow. Now I'll just quickly show the external referral triage workflow. Oh, sorry, give me a minute. Need to log into WorkQM. Any questions while I'm logging in? I know it's a little bit fast, but we are recording.
Cindy, great job. It's straightforward from if you know the workflow, but well done. I have to sign off, sorry.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Okay, so the external referral triage workflow, the beginning part is a little bit different. So this is when, let's say somebody at VGH wants to refer a patient to the SBH heart function clinic. They would fax in a referral and it would land in the heart function referral queue. So the clerks are monitoring their WorkQM queues all the time. They'll see a referral package. They'll double click this, open it up, we'll review it, and they'll attach it to a patient. So I'll quickly go through those steps. Basically, every clerk should have 2 monitors, and the reason why is because of things like this. So the patient's information is on this referral package, and yet they have to somehow put it in here. So at this point, you always want to add a new encounter. You don't want to use an existing encounter. You want to add an encounter. So I'm going to click Add Encounter. I'm going to put in my clinic. This is the glitch that I was talking about earlier. It makes you do it twice, and it drives all the clerks bonkers, and I don't know why that happens. Okay. And then we're going to create a referral encounter. So these are very similar steps as before. You want to put in your encounter information. So I'm going to do cardiology. I'll say demo. Referring provider from the booking package. And then again, you want to go to that referral tab and put in the status. So this is, for example, if this referral package, let's say, was missing something and the clerk was like, oh, there's no consult note in this referral package, it's not ready to be screened yet, this is when they could use that pending status. Let's say it's ready for screening, so that's what I'm going to do. Into OK. And so now you can see on the banner, there's actual patient information, whereas before this was blank. So I'm going to make this a referral package document type. For some reason, it already defaulted to that, but usually it's blank and you have to find it. And we're going to change the status to complete. And then we're going to click OK. The routing button actually just routes it to other queues in WorkQM. OK is what actually attaches it to the patient's chart. And now you can see that this is now gone. And And that's really where QM portion of the workflow. So now if I go back to my patient list as a nurse, and I'll go back to my ready for screening. Oh, see, I didn't execute. I was doing the wrong refresh. It will happen, guaranteed. It does take quite a bit. While I'm waiting, I think there's about 10 tab max for patient lists. I don't know if it's a hard stop after 10 or if it just makes PowerChart really slow for the end user, but I have been told in the past to try to keep it below 8 to 10 if possible. So what we've done in the past to help with that is if there's location-based lists for some of these clinicians, we would ask to maybe combine a couple units into one tab. And that kind of helped decrease the amount of tabs. Some clinicians like having accepted and rejected as a separate one. Some don't really want to see rejected because they know that the clerk is going to deal with it. So really it's kind of up to them, but usually there's at least 1 or 2 or 3 referral tabs that they need. Holy. So yeah, sometimes this.
So Lisa, did you put it to pending instead of ready for screening?
No, I think I did.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe let me check. And you can always check by just going back to your PM conversation. Oh, I'm in the wrong encounter. I'm not in the referral encounter. Let's just double check. But that's actually a good point. So you can't do a referral status on any encounter except a referral encounter. Yeah, it says ready for screening. So if clinics ever get referrals for inpatients, it gets a little bit muddy because they may not realize that they need to create a referral if the patient is like maybe being seen at the bedside or something. So if your clinics do see inpatients, you need to have that kind of in the back of your mind that if they still triage inpatients, they will still their clerk will still need to create a referral encounter in order for like this workflow to work. I think this is a little bit frozen, but pretty much from this step on is the exact same as before. The clinician would click into the patient's chart from this list, review, use the accept order as needed, and that would give the clerk the trigger to schedule the patient. The other let me just see if I can show you what the reject one looks like quickly. I know we're a little bit over time. So the reject workflow is very similar where you would put in a reject order. Reject referral. And this basically just changes the referral status to reject for the clerk. There's reasons here. So we put inappropriate and sign. So this is for this patient. So if I go back to my referral encounter work list, for me, you'll see rejected. So at this point, the clerk would discharge the referral encounter. And normally the clerk has some sort of rejection letter template that they would send to that clinic. It's usually like outside of Cerner process, but we do have the provider letters They haven't been adopted very well. I showed this a long time ago, but you could sort of go down this path, but it's not adopted very well at this point. They're still kind of using their old school letters that they were using pre-Cerner to tell the patients that they've been rejected from being seen. So that in a nutshell is referral triage. There's lots of steps. It goes back and forth between the clinicians and the clerks quite a bit. But really, the most important things to remember is the patient list. It needs to be set up properly. It needs to be proxied properly. And the statuses don't necessarily show in these columns. So it's highly recommended to actually name the tabs, whatever status you've selected, so that it's easy to go back and forth between the tabs. And that's about it. Any questions?
I have a couple. This is Jillian. So just to confirm, an internal referral uses Chatbook and an external referral uses WorkQM. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then for an internal referral, when the clerk first gets it, they have to do, what was it they have to do to move it over to that second list that's only like accepted referrals?
Yeah, they have to right click and modify.
Okay.
Instead of right-click and completing, and then they have to press this set encounter and then add encounter. So they have to add the referral encounter without scheduling anything.
Okay, and then what is the list called that it goes to then?
Yep, and then the list it goes to is in PM Office, and it's under this work list tab, and it's called referral encounter work list. When the clerks open this up, they have to choose what location they want. So I chose heart function clinic, and then all of the referral encounters under heart function clinic pulled up here.
Okay, so those are the referrals that have had a referral encounter created.
Correct.
Right, and then the Chatbook is just all the referrals.
The Chatbook is just any orders to scheduling for that clinic. So it could be a follow-up too. It could be, yeah.
Okay, thank you
More
very much for
generic.
clarifying.
Don't worry too much about the clerk stuff. It's definitely more complicated, I would say. And the scheduling people and registration people on your SWAT team should be able to help you with the clerical portions. It's really just like the patient list and knowing how to flip the encounters through update patient information and through the orders, the accept or reject orders, which look like this once they're put in.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Jalissa, so clerks, nursing, providers, and allied health, they can't update the referral status?
I don't know about allied. Providers can. Nurses can. I think it's position based though. So when you're going through your prep, part of it is like knowing what positions you have and if they do need access to it. Because I think it's an HIM thing. They have to like give certain positions access to this tab. The providers normally just do the order. They don't really go in here and flip these statuses around. They just usually do, in my experience, they only do accept or reject as an order. It's really the nurses that I've seen actually go in here a lot and change things around.
And clerks would usually be doing this as well, right?
Yeah, but and clerks do it through, they do it when they create the encounter by right-clicking and modify. So they don't do it in PowerChart, they do it in here. And then they would, when they're, actually, I don't know how they flip it once they've done it once. They don't usually do that, I don't think. I think they just do it at the beginning.
Okay. Thanks.
But that's a good question. Maybe double check.
Hey, Jalissa, this is Charmaine from Coastal. I just have a question. So first we enter, well, the doctors would have to enter the referral order in a future state. But when another physician enters an accepted order, do they have to cancel the future order, or would entering an accept referral be an automatic? Will that automatically cancel the future order?
So good question. When the clerk schedules the patient, it will use that request. So the request is on here. So this is what they would use. They would right click and complete it to schedule. So once they do that, it uses up that referral order. Does that
Gotcha,
make
thanks.
sense?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Okay, we're a little bit over, so thank you guys so much. Hopefully this is helpful. Please come to me with any questions. And yeah, I think thank you so much.
That was
Thanks,
very
Alyssa.
helpful.
Very
Thank you.
timely.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thanks.
Thanks.